Hi everyone, Sailor Moon here, Serena here, and Sailor Jupiter here, Sailor King World Lita here. And today we're going to talk about, you know, why a lot of folks, what a lot of folks bitch about the Deke Sailor Moon. And I know we made this film many times. Well, so we still understand to this day why so many folks in the Sailor Moon followership hate the Deke Sailor Moon, or downplay anything good about it, or just say it's all bad and it's unwatchable, and you know. Now, first off, Deke Sailor Moon was skimmed it and shifted and cleaned. That's true. But to say that it's unplayable and unwatchable due to that, then that's just where the belief comes in at that time, because there's no truth to show it to be true. Even if most of the Sailor Moon followership hate the Deke Sailor Moon, that doesn't make it true that it was bad and unwatchable. They like to bitch about names. I kid you not. They will bitch. They make a big deal about the Dawnish names, and they don't understand why they were shifted out for Latinist, Frenchist, Spanish, Hebrewish, Farsius, Hellenish, and even Blacklandish borrowed names. In their mind, they just can't understand why that was done, and they behave as if it was a slight on them for that being done. And I believe the grounds to why those names were shifted out is that most folks who speak English mostly know names from the Latin and Frenchish and Spanish and Hebrewish and Farsius and Hellenish and some Blacklandish names, since English borrowed more names from those speeches than it did from Dawnish. I'm sorry. But they make a big deal about it. Another thing they like to make a big deal about is the lack of blood. They're like, oh, they cut the blood out. Yeah, they did. But why make a big deal about blood? They bitch like, oh, like the blood took away from the fight or whatever. But why make a big deal about the blood being gone? I know over in Dawnland and other lands, the Spaniards are not the same when it comes to what is or is not to be on children drawing shows, all right? So getting pissed over the blood not being there, I don't get that. And another thing they like to get irked over is they like to say, oh, they took all the sex jokes, they took all the lovemaking jokes out. The only thing ever came up was twisted. Are you twisted? Are you sick? Yeah, that came up a lot. But yeah, you're going to make a big deal about those things being taken out of it? I just don't understand these folks. What do you think about this, Lita? What do I think about this, Serena? What I think is, Sailor Moon, is some folks just small pick. They pick on the smallest things on the Deke Sailor Moon that they can bitch and rant about, I believe. And I think those are the smallest things that they can bitch and rant about. Like, they make a big deal about the Dark Kingdom, taking us, kidnapping us, and instead of slaying us. Then they bitch about how two sagas became one. I don't understand why they made a big deal about that, and they did. And you know what else they make a big deal out of? Well, about Zoisite being a woman. I get it. Deke and Disney at the time were worried that UPN and WB would not, get it down, and even later on USA and Cartoon would not want to broadcast Sailor Moon if they knew there was someone unstraight in it. I know nowadays the mindset, the stand, the trust, the forgiving, the understanding is greater than what it was back then. But you got to keep in mind, at that time, the way things were, folks couldn't handle it. Nowadays, they can handle that kind of thing. It's not a big deal anymore, and it should never have been a big deal. But back in the day, it was a big deal to some folks. And why you folks still make a big thing out of it, I don't know. Another thing is, it's about Rini. I know bullying is not a good thing. All right? And I know that Rini bullied Serena, Sailor Moon a lot in Sailor Moon R. But hell, Chibiluza bullied Usagi a lot in the Viz Sailor Moon as well. So what was Deke going to do? The only thing Deke and Disney could do, they couldn't really do much. The bullying was there. They couldn't shift it. They couldn't shift the words. I guess they could shift the words coming out of someone's mouth, but they couldn't skim the bullying. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, but at least they shifted what the bullying was about. You folks make a big deal about the bullying, but guess what? It was in Viz Sailor Moon too, That same bullying that you said was wrong, which it is wrong, that was in Viz Sailor Moon too. So don't behave as if that was something they put in there. What else did some folks make a big deal out of? Oh yeah, Rini toy gun being skimmed it out. Well, let me tell you something. Yeah, I don't think having a gun in a children's show at that time, and not between 95 YL, would fly very well, even if that gun happened to be a toy. Nowadays, a lot of folks can handle that. There's an understanding, but back then, that was a no-no. So yeah, the gun went. Why make a big deal out of it? I don't know. Well, you're right. You're right, Lita. You're right, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor King World. At the end of the day, some folks have a belief that they get mad that Disney and Deke skipped over some of the sagas of the first following of Sailor Moon. Well, I guess that was due to them not thinking that folks could handle it. Either there was something going on in that saga that they just thought would not be right for folks young to be watching. And Deke Sailor Moon was made for a younger watchers. I know over in Dawnland it was made for more grown-up watchers, but I know in Dawnland they would have been all right with that. But over in the Setterland of 4-1 Rex at that time, and now between 95 YL, I think some of the things in it, they just didn't think, that they could handle it. And you make a big deal about that. It is what it is. I'm sorry. They skipped it over it. Bitching about it isn't going to shift it. I mean, you folks like to behave as if the Deke Sailor Moon is unwatchable, and it's not. It is watchable. I've watched it many times, and hell, one day when I get in the mood, I'll go back to watch it again. So, there. Anyway, if you like this film, give it a like, share, and playlist it, and we'll see you tomorrow.